Hi guys, how you doing? And today we're going to be talking about the Xbox and Microsoft's new Game Pass. And this was a bit of a bomb, and we were speculating on the Average Gamer podcast yesterday actually, and it should be up on Sunday, that this might have been Microsoft deliberately dropping a bomb to head off the switch somewhat and present some other news for people to get their teeth into. And it is quite a big story because obviously Sony have had their PS Now service for some time, and I think that's about 12 quid a month. And Microsoft have come in and they've dropped this, and it is $7.99 a month in the UK, and that's $9.99 a month, which is considerably cheaper. And it's currently on preview for the Xbox Insiders. That's those people who are on the Xbox Insider program, of which I'm one. And I had a look at it last night, and there's not a lot on there at the moment. I think, something like 15 games or something at the moment, just as a taster to see how it works and get some feedback. In effect, it's in beta. And I had a look at it, and yeah, it looks pretty good. Problem for me is I've got most of the games that are on there currently, but when it actually drops, it's going to be dropping with 100 games. So it's going to hit the ground running. And the other big thing about it is that it's not a streaming service, so it's not like PS Now. Basically what happens is the games will be on a rolling supply, so there'll be games that are on there for a period of time, and you'll be able to download those games to your Xbox and play them as if you had bought the game. So no lag, no latency, no issues there other than any issues that you might have had with the game anyway. So that is definitely an improvement over PS Now, because obviously you get issues with streaming services. And I don't know whether Microsoft have looked at that and thought, well, streaming's not there yet, or whether there was a cost element involved, because as Sully from Average Gamer podcast and one guy's opinion said, this could be a cost issue, because if you look at it from the point of view of cost, then making it so that people download it to their own machines will cost them less because they don't have to set up a server infrastructure for it. Certainly not in a broad sense like you would if you were doing a streaming service. Obviously, you're going to have to house the games to be downloaded on a server, but you're not actually running it from a server. So the infrastructure cost is a lot less there, it would seem anyway. The other thing that I'm looking at, if you look at it in terms of EA Access, it looks very similar. And EA Access has obviously been up and running for some time, and that works pretty well, I would say. I enjoy EA Access. I am actually a subscriber to it. And I might actually subscribe to this if the 100 games that they drop interest me, and there's some of the games that I don't already own. Now, going back to the rolling service, what happens there, we're not absolutely clear, but it looks like you'll have these games for some time, and then some games will be added, some games will be lost, much like the system with Netflix. And you'll be given a heads up, presumably, and told that this game is going away from the service. Once the game goes away from the service, you'll be given the option prior to that to buy it at a discount. And the discount will be a pretty hefty 20%. And given that these games will have been out for a while, they'll probably be cheaper anyway. So 20% off, that gives you a library of cheap games. Also, while you're subscribed to this service, any of the games in that service, their add-ons will be at a 10% discount as well. So there's a lot of savings to be had there. So it could turn out for some people that this $7.99 a month, or $9.99 if you're looking at dollars a month, turns out to be cost effective. And as I say, that will depend on what games are available on the service. But if you look so far, this isn't just Microsoft Studios that are signed up to this. It looks like a lot of people are coming on board. And as I say, if you compare it in terms of the PlayStation Now service, it's cheaper. It's going to be better to play those games because you're not going to get latency and so on and so forth. Basically, it's a win-win, it would seem to me. So this looks like a pretty decent option, especially if you're going to be buying a new console. And that was something else that came up in the Average Gamer podcast. And we were talking about the Scorpio. And I think it was actually me who suggested that, what happens if the Scorpio comes along and they drop it with this service and say you get, 3 months free on Xbox Game Pass. You got a new console and you've immediately got 100, and by Christmas probably more like 150 games ready to play. You just go in, you sign up to the service, you've got a whole collection of games from day one. Makes the sort of Switch launch look a little bit sick, doesn't it? And it does make me wonder why Nintendo haven't thought about doing something like this with their back catalogue. I mean, I mentioned this in videos before, and I'm going off subject a little bit here, But Nintendo have got a huge back catalogue, and if they did something like this, it would be phenomenal. They could blow everyone out of the water with a service like this. But, that's another conversation. The only issues, obviously, that come out of this are, there are some implications. And Sully shared a link this morning, and I'll put a link to it in the description, talking about GameStop. And apparently GameStop's share price plummeted on this news, which is hardly surprising because it looks like companies like GameStop and Game in the UK are going to find it harder to sell secondhand games if people can get hold of them from a service like this. You go in, you could buy one game, £6-7, or two games, you walk away, you've got a couple of games. But if you're subscribed to this service at $7.99 a month, you've got hundreds of games available to you, or you will do once it gets up and running. And, it's a flat fee. It is very much like Netflix. Obviously, you're not streaming. And I do think with games, not streaming is an advantage, as I've already said. So Game and GameStop and companies like that are going to struggle. But then again, they've already been struggling with PS Now. And I think if PS Now was a little bit cheaper, and I think PS Now may have to reconsider, Sony may have to reconsider their price. I think if it was a little bit cheaper, this would put even more of a squeeze on companies like GameStop and Game. So we could see those companies finding it harder and harder to exist. And I think we're seeing the kind of beginning of the end of the high street game shop. Obviously, Nintendo, if they do well, may bolster that a little bit with their cartridges, because obviously a lot of people are going to be buying their games on cartridges rather than downloading because of the obvious issue with space. But Sony and Microsoft are obviously pushing in this direction. And I do think these companies are going to get squeezed more and more. The other thing that I thought of with this was E3. And we've heard some stories over the last couple of weeks that Microsoft's E3 stands look pretty pathetic, really. If you look at the floor plan, and somebody put up a floor plan online, it looks like Microsoft haven't got a lot going on the floor. And, we did speculate that they brought forward this announcement to head off the Switch somewhat. But I wondered if, maybe they had other stuff coming at E3 that was bigger. And that kind of flies in the face of the stories that have been going around about Microsoft not doing much at E3. They obviously got the Scorpio coming, and I do think there will be some big announcements at E3. And I think bringing this forward, it could have been allowing them to make some more space for other announcements. They maybe don't want to overcrowd their schedule. Obviously, that could be wishful thinking on my part as well, but we'll wait and see what happens at E3. It could be, as Sully and Grant suggested, that it's just that they wanted to head off the Switch somewhat. So we will see. But anyway, that's my take on it. I do think that this is a good service, or it has the potential to be a good service. At the moment, there's not a great deal on there. But, this is a beta at present, and it's just a taster just to see how it works. Once it gets up and running, I do think it looks like a pretty decent value for money service, dependent on the games it has. And I do think it's going to squeeze out some of the high streets. I think Microsoft and Sony between them are doing a pretty good job of squeezing them out at the moment. And I don't think there's much they can do about it, to be honest. But as I say, what do you guys think? Do you agree with me? Do you think we're seeing the beginning of the end for the high street game store? Do you think that this is good value for money? Do you think that this compares well, or will compare well when it's up and running with Sony's PS Now service? Or do you think PS Now's better? Some of you may well think that PlayStation Now's better and that streaming is a better idea. I mean, I certainly think that maybe we're heading towards streaming in the long term, but I don't think we're ready for that quite yet. And I think Microsoft have made a good move here. It looks very much like EA Access, but on a bigger scale. And with the discounts they're offering as well, yeah, as I say, I think it looks like a decent service. So come and let me know what you think, and we'll have a discussion as usual. And in the meantime, I'm going to get myself a cup of tea, and I'll speak to you again. Bye.